So Neville just got done presenting at the UBS Future of 5G event. They went on for an hour. So there was a lot of small talk in between that I don't want to bore you guys with. So I'll go and I'll just cover the key points. Now, I wish some of these key points he would have went more into detail, but due to the fact that the quiet period for auction 108 is already in effect, he couldn't talk much about that auction at all or hinting at any of that spectrum for that matter. So right away, right off the bat, 75% of his network has been touched in some way, shape, or form. N41, N71, radios, whatever needed has been touched. And of course, he's going to have to further scale that as he goes through the rest of this year and then 2023. So my takeaway from this presentation, capital intensity for 2023 is going towards rural, all of it. About 95% of it is going towards the rural deployments of new coverage. And I've said this before in a previous video. I've said it to some in private chats. I personally believe if you look at the range and the frequency of 2.5, per the upgrades, I think they tap out at that 260 mark, where they can go and just upgrade and gain more pops that way. I personally believe, and this is just me, to go from 260 to 300 million covered with mid-band, the 2.5 layer, they're going to have to build new sites to get there. And that's what I think he's signaling in 2023, that happens, because even when asked about DoD and C-band, he said it's not a full-scale deployment early on. He said it is congestion protection and will be used in form of targeted deployments. That is his quote. That I'm quoting Neville here. He said that they are not going to deploy this prematurely. So they're not going on sites deploying 2 separate panels, 2 separate radios. He is going to wait until the dual band radio, so a single panel that can support that dual band radio, is fully in supply. He's not going to wait. He's not going to deal with any shortages on that. He's going to wait until Ericsson and Nokia both have that fully in stock in the supply chain that he can pull from and then go and deploy it. He says there's absolutely no rush to force this deployment, such as what AT&T is doing right now. They're deploying 2 separate radios. In some cases, they can't deploy a second radio because it's not ready. So T-Mobile says they're in no hurry to touch any of that or go anywhere to full scale with D-band, with C-band or DoD. So there's not a lot of capital intensity that's going to go towards that at all in 23. There will be some deployments later in the year, he said, but it's going to be very targeted. So I expect that volume to pick up in 2024, if not 2025. For now, that is what he said, and I tend to agree with him. If he can, over the next 18 months, he said he can peak at 200 megahertz. If he builds the density, builds enough density that the model shows with the small cells that are coming, they should be fine. In many cases, they aren't anywhere close to that. They're now just getting over that 100 megahertz hump, adding a second carrier in some of these markets. In El Paso, they're still running 40 megahertz, and that still includes the LTE carriers, but they're handling it fine. It does have its rough patches, but they're handling it at 40. And once that LTE network of Sprint shuts down, they can scale that even more. So we'll have to monitor and see, but for now, that is their plan. Also, the next form of NR deployments that are coming is going to be PCS. He said he's focused on that very heavily. So radios, stuff that are going up on the site are going to support PCS over NR, like using it dedicated, not DSS. It's going to be dedicated towards 5G. So eventually, once that SA core comes into play at more scale, you're going to have 2.5, which is TDD, and then you're going to have 600 FDD and 600 and 1.9 PCS FDD across the board. That's going to be their layer of spectrum that they're going to have on the SA core. Also said 2.5 is going all to 5G. So that's going to leave LTE once that Sprint network is shut down. Even on the T-Mobile side, I know there's some of that band 41 on LTE. That's going to all be moved towards 5G. So just a quick update on that. 55% of traffic is now on 5G as of today, as of the update that Neville gave. So they're moving that base and traffic onto 5G very quickly. I assume by the end of the year, they'll be somewhere at 60 to 65% at the pace that they're going now, which is going to be a huge accomplishment for the company because of the size of scale of network that they already have on the NR and the spectrum that it can hold. It's going to be a far better performing network once you have that lower latency with that spectrum. Even if the speeds are not as fast as they were on NSA at the beginning, the latency alone, he said, is going to give you better call quality because of the lower latency and just an all-around better performing experience. So those were some of the key talking points. He did touch on millimeter wave. He did tell the presenter, thank you for reminding me that is the top layer. He threw shade at Verizon saying that if I do the math and I deploy the millimeter wave network in the form of how Verizon deployed it, it doesn't add up because right now the only use case for that network that they can monetize is home broadband. Outside of that, he said there's not much to pull from when it comes to millimeter wave. He did say he is starting to scale and peak a bit at that deployment for his venues and stadiums. So you should start seeing more of that in those arenas and stadiums by the end of this year. But 2023, by my predictions, is going to be the year for rural America in a big way. That is when they scale the most of their new sites, really expanding that coverage outside of their footprint, and then getting more of that mid-band layer into small markets and rural towns. Now, that is where the fixed wireless access possibility just grow that much bigger. He did touch on that very briefly. They want to go grow 7 to 8 million. He also hinted at that it's not such a good business in the urban core. He did say that. So he will have more, he said, room for hunting in the rural area versus urban. They look at it on a sector per sector basis, household per household. And that's how they determine it's automated, who gets approved for what. And a lot of times they determine that, this sector facing this area based on the usage, based on the traffic is not going to get approved. Not ever. So they have very early on with their projection model came to the conclusion that no matter how fast this gets, no matter how much spectrum we add, this is not going to get approved. Not ever. I don't know at what scale that they're coming to that conclusion, but he says they're figuring out per their projection models, some sectors are just not going to get approved. No matter how they look at it, how they twist it, there's just too many smartphones, too many wearables on the network for them to be approved. Even if that sector can push out 200, 300, 400 megabits all day, he says there's just not enough future capacity per the increase of expected usage to handle additional usage such as fixed wireless access. So that was my video. There's plenty more to talk about. I'll probably rewatch and then break it down into more smaller videos. Very interesting take from Neville. He is. It seems like he's growing more confident. He's like, they can't catch me. He's like, my deployment levels are so much wider at scale that it's going to take Verizon and AT&T a few more years to even get close to me, according to him. Now, this is not coming from me. This is what he's saying. He was like, I'm already shifting to the SA core more. I'm doing voice over NR commercially now. I'm scaling the bandwidth on the radios that I've already deployed. So he's confident. He was like, he's pretty much saying there's no capital pressure that can get them to catch up, within a year or two. They're going to need more time. And he says he's going to present another statistic I'll have to rewatch that part. That'll get you to understand even more as to how wide his lead really is. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe to the channel. Follow the social media outlets for more updates and interaction. Let's interact in the comment section. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.